Anthropic spent the last month telling the US government its most advanced AI models were dangerous enough to need export controls. Days after that argument got two of its own models suspended worldwide, it shipped a brand new one built to prove exactly the opposite. That's Claude Sonnet 5, and if you've watched any other video on it this week, you've probably seen the same three things: benchmark bars, a coding demo, and someone saying it's close to Opus but cheaper. All true. Sonnet 5 launched June 30th as Anthropic's most agentic sonnet yet, sitting close to Opus 4.8 on real tasks while costing significantly less, and it's now the default model for everyone on the free and pro plans. Intro pricing is $2 per million input tokens and 10 per million output, running through the end of August, before it jumps to 3 and 15. That's the surface story, and I'm not spending more time on it than that because three things happened around this release that almost nobody covered properly, and that's what this video is actually about. First, the part developers actually need to hear. Anthropic is marketing Sonnet 5 as a drop-in replacement for Sonnet 4.6. Same API, same price at standard rates, just swap the model name and you're done. Mostly true. But there are three specific behavior changes hiding under that drop-in label that can break existing production code if nobody warns you about them. The first is that adaptive thinking is now turned on by default, even on requests that never asked for it. On Sonnet 4.6, if you didn't include a thinking field, the model just answered. On Sonnet 5, that same request now runs an internal reasoning pass automatically. The second is that max tokens used to be a limit on your output text. Now it's a combined limit across thinking and the response together, which means a token budget that worked perfectly on 4.6 can suddenly truncate your actual answer on 5 because the thinking process is eating into the same ceiling. And the third is that if your code still sets temperature, top P, or top K to anything other than default, Sonnet 5 doesn't just ignore it anymore, it throws a hard error. None of this is shouted about in the launch post. It's buried in developer documentation. If you're migrating a production pipeline this week, this is the part that actually costs you an afternoon of debugging, not the benchmark chart. Second, let's talk about who's really using this thing with actual numbers instead of the usual one-line partner quote every article recycles. Harvey, the legal AI company, put Sonnet 5 through its internal legal agent benchmark, a deliberately brutal test built to mirror how multi-step legal work actually gets assigned and reviewed inside a law firm. Sonnet 5 scored under 6% on the strict all-pass version of that benchmark. That's not really a knock on the model. It tells you how unforgiving real professional-grade agentic work still is, even for a model this capable, and it's a far more honest data point than "our partner loved it." On the engineering side, Cursor's co-founder described agents built on Sonnet 5 as staying on plan and shipping clean, multi-step changes without drifting off task, which sounds like marketing until you notice it's specifically about multi-file changes holding together over long agent runs, which has been the actual failure mode of every Sonnet before this one. And Zapier's engineering team ran a genuinely unglamorous two-part business task, updating account tiers in Salesforce, then sending a launch email to enterprise contacts, the kind of task that used to stall halfway through with older models, and Sonnet 5 finished it end-to-end without anyone stepping in. That's the real signal buried under the flashy benchmark charts. It's not that Sonnet 5 is smarter, it's that it stops quitting early. Third, and this is the angle I haven't seen anyone else connect yet, for the past few months, Anthropic has been telling the US government, publicly and privately, that its frontier models are so capable they need government-level oversight. That's the entire premise behind the Mythos program and Project Glasswing. That argument came back to bite them. In June, Amazon researchers found a way to get Fable 5 to identify software vulnerabilities, and within days, the Commerce Department slapped export controls on both Fable 5 and Mythos 5, cutting off access worldwide for 18 days, even for Anthropic's own non-citizen staff. One industry analyst put it bluntly: when you keep telling governments your systems are exceptionally capable and potentially dangerous, eventually governments take you at your word. Sonnet 5 launched right into that backdrop, deliberately under-trained on cybersecurity tasks, shipping with real-time cyber safeguards turned on by default, specifically so it wouldn't end up in the same regulatory box as its bigger siblings. Every safety decision baked into this model reads less like caution and more like a company that just watched its own rhetoric get turned into a federal directive and is now quietly engineering its next release so that can't happen to it again. Now, you've probably already seen coverage of the Fable and Mythos timing, and the tokenizer change that can quietly inflate your token usage by up to 35%. That part's genuinely important if you're budgeting API costs, and it's been well covered elsewhere, so I'm not repeating it here. What I wanted to leave you with is this. Sonnet 5 isn't really a story about a model getting smarter. It's a story about a company that got burned by its own safety messaging and built its next release specifically to survive it. Let me know in the comments whether you think that's smart positioning or a company just covering its own back.